We good? This is Jake Evans here. We're continuing our kitchen table series. Today we're in Forsyth County, and we got three great concerned parents that are going to talk about many of the issues that they're seeing with their children who are in school. Some are in public school, some are looking at private school, some are currently homeschooled. So as you guys know, my name is Jake Evans, congressional candidate in Georgia 6. And I also want our ladies here, we can go around the table to briefly introduce yourself, where you live, how many kids you have, where they go to school, so that everybody can know.
My name is Lindsay Henderson. I have a 9-year-old daughter at Mashburn Elementary in Cumming and a 17-year-old son at Forsyth Central. We have lived in Cumming since 2002, and they have always been in public school.
My name is Mindy Moore. I have 4 kids. I have a 13-year-old who's in 7th grade at Little Mill Middle School. I have twin boys that are 16 and they are at Alliance Academy. They are studying aerospace and mechatronics, which is engineering. And I have a daughter who's in her 30s. She's married and has 3 little girls, one of which is in 1st grade at Chestatee Elementary here in the county.
I'm Jackie Gaskins. I have 5 children. My oldest is 21 and she goes to UNG nursing school. My 17-year-old, 16-year-old, and 14-year-old daughters go to Tandem. I homeschool. Tandem is a one-day-a-week program. And then I have a 9-year-old son that I also homeschool. And I've homeschooled from day one.
Fantastic. Well, good. Well, my wife and I, as you guys know, will soon be starting a family. And so looking at the forward and the education of our future generations, I think is one of the most important issues we have. So Lindsay, I know that you're very vocal about some of your concerns, and so looking, what's going on in public schools, and I know we were talking earlier, you've even thought about maybe taking one of your children to private school. Why is that, and what's the biggest issues and concerns you have right now?
So my 9-year-old daughter is dyslexic. She was diagnosed in her 1st grade year, and it was very recent. I was attending a town hall meeting to learn about some mental health issues that are going on in the county and, everywhere really. And the book issue was brought up in this meeting, and I learned a lot about the content of the books that my children have access to. So I started attending more meetings, getting more involved, meeting more politicians, people that are running for office, and just listening to what everyone has to say. I recently learned about SB 10, which is a special needs scholarship, and because my daughter is dyslexic and has an IEP, we have the ability to basically take the funding from her public school and apply that towards a private school. There's a huge list of private schools, and it covers a great chunk, so it's something we are definitely considering, if there's not some serious changes. Right now, she's in 3rd grade going into 4th, so she doesn't have as much exposure as the middle and high school students do to the DEI, CRT, and inappropriate content and the books. Mm-hmm. I am really hoping that there is a change before she goes to middle school. If not, we're going to have to pull that plug.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. We were talking to a supporter recently, and he was telling me he's got 6 kids. His first 3 were in actually homeschooled. His next 3 were in public school, and he says that there's an ideological difference. The most recent going through public school are much more left-leaning. They're not getting the same type of education he provided his kids through homeschool. Mindy, have you seen any of that? What's your biggest concerns looking at what we've got right now?
Well, so I kind of have a daughter who graduated from South Forsyth High School in 2007, and then I've got boys that are currently in school. So I have seen quite the shift in our school system in all of those years. And so there is so much more focus on feelings in the school system right now, and on excuses, not being an overcomer. And when my daughter was in school, she was held to a very high standard. I mean, our schools in Forsyth County they're great schools. They've always been great schools. And I think that's what's disheartening is that we woke up one day and we said, wait a second, how did all of this liberal propaganda get into our school systems? And we found a year ago that there were tenets of CRT in our school system. And it wasn't in the curriculum, and there wasn't a class called CRT, but it was infiltrated in a variety of different ways through supplemental materials, through teachers with agendas, counselors, administrators who bought into that stuff, and they started addressing that and promoting it. And so I'm seeing with my youngest that he's definitely more into his feelings, and looking for that excuse, looking for an out. And honestly, right now, one of the things I've spoken to the school board about is that we've lowered the bar for our kids. We're not holding them accountable any longer. We are letting them turn in assignments late without penalty. We are letting them retake a test that they bombed because they failed to prepare. And I need my kids to fail now.
Yeah,
if
sure.
if they didn't prepare, they deserve to fail. And my 13-year-old got that lesson recently because he wanted to stay home from school because he did not do his assignment. And my mom radar went off. And I was like, you're not feeling bad. What's going on? And I said, no, you need to go to school. He says, well, I'm going to get an F. And I said, well, you should get an F. And he goes, you're okay with that? And I said, well, no, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
But that's what you deserve.
Yeah.
And so we need to hold our kids accountable and teach them life lessons that are going to prepare them to be successful later. And by giving them these multiple chances and not having any consequence to them, I don't think that's teaching our kids to be responsible.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen is that the bar and the expectation for the kids has continued to be lowered in an effort to get everybody to the same finish line.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And my generation was the one where it started where everybody got trophies.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and it's no longer about exceptionalism, American exceptionalism, building up American resilience, American resolve. It's about this equity system, which is everybody participates, and the reality is that doesn't prepare you for the real world. Now, Jackie, you homeschool your kids. Now, why did you do that, and what do you do? You know, and I assume you're doing it yourself to make sure that these type of indoctrination is not happening in your household.
Right. I actually had never heard of homeschooling. We're from Indiana. I moved down here. We were praying about being parents. Started to have our children, and I really felt like the Lord told me to homeschool, and so I started to look into it. I believe that I only have them for a short amount of time, and they're a blessing, and so I wanted to be very intentional with the time that I have with them. And so the scripture that says, above all else, to guard your heart, because out of it will flow the issues of life. I wanted their heart to be prepared more than educationally, but the education also. So we homeschooled, and we chose a curriculum that had Bible verses interwoven in things, so that they were learning the word and learning education, so that when they went on their own, that word was deep within them. You know, because the Bible says if you train up a child in the way they should go, when they're old, they won't depart from it. And so I'm counting on His word. And so not knowing all this, and now seeing what's happened, our kids play sports, so when they interact with other kids, I do see the difference. And we've raised them, we have told them that work is not a curse.
Yeah.
Work is a blessing.
That's right.
The Bible says that He will bless the work of your hands, and that is so different. They go to meet other kids, and they're like giving all this stuff, and they're like, Mom, they didn't even work for it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad they have to work for it, because they appreciate it, and they know that God will bless the work of their hands. So
No,
the heart is more important, and the education comes. Our oldest daughter's in nursing school, but she had to work for it.
yes.
So yeah, I'm proud of them.
Jackie, I think that's great. And I will say, you guys know this, but I've fought for religious liberties, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of cities throughout Georgia that want to take religion out of our schools. They want to take it out of our society, and we've got to be bold and unafraid and fight for that, because that's what, in my opinion, helped make America the greatest country on earth. And also, one of the most uniquely American characteristics we have is our work ethic.
Right.
We don't take August and July off. We
Right.
work hard, and we got to train our future generations. The next topic I want to talk about is sports. You know, I grew up, I played sports, and I'll tell you, playing sports for me helped carve me into the man that I am, because early on you learn how to be resilient, overcome defeat. You learn how to work hard, compete, beat people out. But we've got now a phenomena where apparently in some people's minds it's okay for men to play female sports. Lindsay, you have an opinion on that? How do we address that, and what's your thoughts on it?
I haven't spent as much time on this topic, but my opinion is, you know, women are built differently than men. Our DNA is different, everything. I don't think it is fair to women who have worked so hard for women's rights, for sports, for all of the achievement and acknowledgement and winning, and to have a man come in who chooses to be a woman and take
Yeah.
that all away.
Yeah.
I feel like Mindy can probably speak more on this topic than I can.
I'm sure Mindy has an opinion.
My boys don't play sports. They're geeks, and I'm like, you be a geek. Geeks, nerds rule the world. They're into robotics and things
Okay.
like that, computers and all. But I do see my biggest concern with this whole men playing women's sports is that we have deviated from fact-based culture to that feelings culture. And as Lindsay said, there is a very big difference between how a woman is created
Right.
and how a man is created. And a man is going to have a lot of advantages physically over a female. And so my niece plays collegiate softball. She's
Wow.
on a scholarship. She's a freshman. She's a pitcher. She's amazing. Hi, Haley.
Yeah.
Anyway, it breaks my heart to think that a man, a biological male, could come in and decide that he wants to play, and he probably would be better because he's stronger. He's built different. And she could lose her scholarship, and she could lose her ability to do the thing that she loves. She's been doing it since she was little bitty.
Yeah.
That's not right. And it's also not right to pair them up on the same playing field where she could end up getting very hurt.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
some of this is a
absolutely.
very physical environment. It's not just the swimming where there's no contact. We are playing contact sports with men and women, with males and females. And I just don't think that's right.
Yeah. No, I agree. Jackie, you have an opinion? What? How you
I
got
have
boys
4 daughters.
Playing, daughters playing
and
sports?
Then, yes, and they all played sports.
Yeah.
And our senior that's getting ready to graduate is going to college to play volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very passionate about the girls' sports. And then I have the young boy plays football in the end. But Mindy and I were talking, I really think this is more of a church issue. I think as a church we have not stood up say there is a clear difference that God created a man and a woman, and that's good. And he actually says, and that's good.
And that's good. He
Yeah.
does.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's an identity issue.
Yeah.
And as the body of Christ and as Christians, we haven't been willing to speak up on these things for too long. We've hidden
Yeah.
in our churches, we've hidden, just been comfortable. But it's time to say what the truth is. And he created a male and a female, and it was good, and it's good. And so I'm very passionate about keeping the men with their men's sports and the women with the women's sports. Like she said, it's a physical, you can get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our girls work hard for those positions that they have. My daughter that's going to college to play ball, I just can't imagine. She's worked so hard, and then if a man would come in, and of course he might. I mean, that they're just bigger, different physical structures. So
Well, and then Mindy made a point that I hadn't thought of previously. It takes away the ability for these women to have scholarships
Yeah,
based on
that's
this.
true.
You're flooding the participants in the
Yeah.
sport,
Right.
and obviously they're going to perform better in most cases, and that's just not fair
Yeah.
to these women academically.
That's right. Well, I think the wokeism in our culture has used social currency for everything.
Yes.
If you are transgender, suddenly on the wokeism ladder, you're moved way up, and we're just incentivizing
Right.
people, in my opinion, to identify in ways that really aren't natural.
right.
And if the statistics actually speak to that, the numbers of transgender people are moving up, and we need to go
Right.
back to our teachings. There is a difference.
There's a-
The other point I think we got to highlight is First Amendment rights, which is speaking up for what all of us believe in. If you look at when you had these mask mandates, these vaccine mandates at all of our schools, and our children, 6, 7, 8 years old, going in with masks every day, whenever the science indicated they have almost no likelihood of catching COVID.
Right.
Right.
And parents were having to be very, very vitriolic, go forward and fight at these school boards. And I know, Lindsay, you're one of those mama bears that put this forward, and I think everyone would love to hear your story, what happened after you did voice your concerns.
Well,
Lay it out there.
yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, I went to a town hall meeting to learn about mental health issues that are currently happening, and learned about books. Following that town hall meeting, about a week later, I attended my first Board of Education meeting in Forsyth County, and I did not speak. I just watched and kind of took it all in. And as I am in the meeting, I am getting blown up by my husband, and he knows I'm in the meeting, so I'm thinking that there's an emergency. We had an individual call our business phone from a private caller, or from a private phone number, and made threats to take ads out against our company if and I quote, I did not try to, or if I didn't stop parenting everyone else's kids in Forsyth County and talking about books. And that's just not okay for me. I don't want my children reading this, and I think it's okay for people to have different opinions, but to make a threat against someone's livelihood, their business, how they feed their family, to where we are now concerned and worried about someone coming to our house.
Yeah.
They're like, who is this person? What are they capable of? We have no idea.
Yeah.
And that's just insanity.
No, I know. And it's the reason why we have to be bold and speak out.
Oh, absolutely.
And it goes back to, first of all, you guys speaking out today and how important that is. And I also want to talk about localizing kind of the curriculum. Right now we have the Federal Department of Education, which I've been very vocal about, that I'm for eradicating. It's has a massive $68 billion annual budget. Since its inception in 1980, it really hasn't improved any scores. I mean, U.S. is still trailing a lot of our peer nations. And I think maybe you'd be good to talk about this, and also I'd like to hear you guys' perception too, but you are able to really localize your curriculum, which is within your household. How would you encourage a parent, that has a child in public school to maybe offset the indoctrination? How do you help make that happen, given you're able to have direct control over the teachings?
That's the best thing about homeschooling, is I know pretty much everything that's going on. I will say that we went to school for 1 year at a Christian private school, and we realized that there's a lot of wasted time.
Yeah, yeah.
So to get up and get your schoolwork done and to really focus on those things is great, because it leaves so much time for other options. But because I do homeschool, I can see what they are learning, and I have more control over it, and so that's the good thing about homeschooling.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And Mindy, how do you, whenever you're coming home and you're seeing, because I even see it with me. I mean, I was educated in the public school system, around 20 years ago, and I meet the next generation, and I just see it's a different perception and worldview. I mean, truly about how hard work isn't quite at the same level emphasized. When your children are coming home and they voice that, how do you offset it?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it has become much more labor intensive as a parent to stay on top of this stuff. I have always been in and out of the school system. I was on PTO, I was in the classroom, I was doing fundraisers, I was really plugged into what our kids were doing. I saw what they were bringing home. There was never any concerns until the last few years. And all of a sudden, once you've seen the stuff, you can't unsee that.
Yeah.
And so now I'm aware. And so I feel like everything that comes through, I have to look at it. What book are you reading? They'll get assigned a book. I go and do my own research on what is this book? What do I need to know about it? And go to a couple of different sources to get a very broad feedback on that book. Assignments, I'm asking my kid about, his assignments, and then I'm having to ask him about his teachers. Well, what do you think? Do you know what their political leanings are? And there is so much more conversation and effort having to go on as a parent, and that's the one thing I would tell people is to get involved, do anything and everything that you can to get in that classroom, get in that school, and go through their books, go through their binders, go through everything that they're doing, so that you are fully aware. They are sneaky in the ways that this indoctrination
Surveys.
stuff has
Yeah,
come.
absolutely.
Surveys.
They're doing surveys, and then there's third-party apps like BrainPop. We found that they were pushing social justice videos of George Floyd on this BrainPop thing. They were doing a lot of social justice and CRT type stuff through these third-party apps, and so the schools don't have any control of that, and that content can change in a second.
Yeah.
And so even if today there's nothing out there, by that time there could be. And so parents have to be very assertive in just digging in there and seeing what their kids are actually learning and having the conversation with their kids. We get in the car every day and it's like, how was your day? What did you talk about? What are you studying? What are you doing? Well, what are you doing with that? It's a lot more in depth than I ever had to do before, because the trust is broken.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. The trust is broken in our school system.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah, no, I mean, you want to encourage our future generations to think independently, and I believe that the critical race theory, the critical theory, which is actually not just critical race theory, they can apparently inject critical theory into everything from math,
Oh,
social
yes.
science.
Yes.
And they are.
They
yeah,
are.
which
We have,
and
we have
it's
tons of examples of that thing.
yeah, and it's a national security threat, in my opinion, because we're artificially dividing future generations. Whenever you look at our largest enemies, China, you have no First Amendment right, and so they're going to have a unified front. We're not. But how do you, and Lindsay, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you encourage the critical thinking and independent thinking to challenge what the teachings are that are going forward.
Well, I think that, doing what we're doing now, fighting, being present, speaking with the teachers, emailing the principals, asking for the schools not to send these surveys to your child's, tablets or whatever devices, and having open dialogue with your children. Like Mindy was saying, every day I have to speak with my son. What did you do today? What kind of assignments? And it's just not okay that they know what their teachers' sexual orientations and political beliefs are. We've got to focus less on these issues and focus more on academics.
Yes, right.
We have to get
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
that.
Yep.
I know I was telling Mindy earlier, my daughter in 9th grade, I told her to do her reading homework a few weeks ago, and she said, well, Mom, as a dyslexic child, she does a lot of her reading on her tablet, and she said, Mom, my teacher said we can't use Epic and Mayan, which are online apps through the Forsyth County ClassLink that provide books to them. Mayan is a vetted resource through Forsyth County. It's a paid resource, so they vet it. Epic is not. It was a free resource, and the director of elementary education told me that since it was a free resource, they did not vet it, which is highly irresponsible in and of
Wow.
itself.
Yes.
And so I'm questioning, why is my 9-year-old telling me that she can't use these apps? Why didn't I get an email from the teacher, the principal, the board? Nothing. So I started digging and found out that there was a book called The Gay BCs available to elementary age students.
Wow.
And this is a picture book where G stands for gay and T stands for trans. And it's just like, how do you
Yeah.
protect them from that? I feel like really, in my case, pulling out, using that special needs scholarship and putting into a private school is my best option. But what about my son who
Yeah.
doesn't have a learning disability? I don't have that option for him. So
Yeah.
there's no parent choice here.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we're also, you have anything to add to that,
I was
Jackie?
just
Go
going to
ahead.
say, also what I thought was very important for our kids was to learn U.S. history, government, and economics. And so we sent them to a group called Teen Pack, and they went down to the state capitol, and they learned how bills were made. They learned how to critical think. They saw cases in the Supreme Court and had to compare it to the Constitution. We want them to have a firm foundation on the Constitution
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
how our country was founded,
Yes.
and our founding fathers, who they really were, and what their founding beliefs were, and how important that is. Because if you don't know, the roots are not strong, so it's easy to pick that up
Yeah,
and move it
that's
along.
right.
Yeah.
And so that is very important. In homeschool, we can start to add some additional things. And Teen Pack is a fantastic program. So I just want to add that, because not just that, but the other economics and history and those kinds of things.
Yeah, no, that's great points. And like I said earlier, one of my big concerns is creating this social currency for any of these LGBTQ factors, because what's happened is you're incentivizing your youth. You're giving them special treatment. You know, if
Yes.
you're transgender, you get to compete in a different, easier field if you're a man. But social media is what I want to talk about next. I mean, in my generation, there was no, any of us, there was no social media. And I think it's an existential threat on the country. I mean, social media is heavily left-leaning.
Yep.
You also, for our youth who haven't generated the maturity we have, they're not aware there's subliminal messaging and influences there. It's also highly addictive. I mean, I think all of us, not many people could make it a day without their cell phone these days.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
can't
Mindy,
even I leave it home.
how do you deal with that? I mean, that is a big, big issue.
So first of all, my boys did not get cell phones until they started high school, and that was
Wow.
only because I was carpooling them, and they got a phone that they could call and text, and they had very limited data,
Wow.
very limited data. And so if They cannot download anything without me putting in my password. Social media is a huge no in our household. You will not be on social media. And there's a number of different, we think of Facebook, but there's several other variations for kids. But there's nothing good that I have seen that has come from social media with kids. And so that is a big no for us. So we really limit technology. The Xfinity app has been my best friend in the world. I can pause their internet at any point in time from anywhere. I can be sitting on a beach and they're at home with my husband and I can press pause. And I've got internet controls. The internet goes off at 8:30 in my household every single night.
Nice.
So
I need to do that in my household. I'd probably sleep a lot better.
So, we really hold the line. We have a number of controls and, filters in place so that they can't get that content. I tell my boys all the time, can you unsee something? No. Can you unhear something? No. Once it's in your mind, can you get it out? No. I said, you don't know what's out there, but I do. And it's my job as your mom to protect your eyes, your ears, your heart, and your mind. And I take that job very seriously. And so when I hear the other side say, well, they're exposed to this on, social media and stuff like that, why do you worry about a book? My kids aren't exposed to that stuff on social media because that is a high priority to protect their eyes, their ears, their heart, and their mind in our household. And so we will not go along to be just like everybody else. Well, so-and-so has one. I don't care.
Yeah, how do you handle that? I mean, I'm sure they say all my friends have them. Why can't I have them?
I'm not everyone else's mom. You
Yeah.
ask my son, that's exactly what he will tell you.
Yeah.
He
So
does
how
not
do you
have-
handle it? You same way?
So I gave him a cell phone when he was 9, only because we were paying a mortgage and daycare tuition for my youngest. And I'm like, oh, let's try to let him stay home alone. But I needed to be able to make sure he was home and safe. And that lasted for all of 2 weeks. And then he did not have a cell phone or social media, period, until he was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
And now the only reason that he has it is because he's driving. But, all through middle school, Mom, all the kids have a phone.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm not their mom. And like Mindy said too, I have AT&T, but I have the same capabilities to just go pause and change a password. Sometimes my son is very smart, and that's a great thing, but he also can undermine me a lot. So I'm like, I can just change the password to the Wi-Fi from my phone. And I have also been very protective of the content that he has access to. So I don't like that statement either. Oh, well, what are you worried about them reading a book? They have access to the internet. Maybe your children do, mine don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jackie, what about same for
Pretty
you?
much the same, yes. We have the Xfinity app, turn it off when, they actually don't get it turned on until school, like their schoolwork's done. Then I can turn the Xbox on or anything like that for my son. But the same thing, they didn't get their phones until, 13, they got a phone, say basketball and different things for me to have to pick them up. But we just monitor it. I don't monitor it as much as I should. That's where prayer comes in.
Yeah.
With 5 kids and I work and, different things, I just have to believe that the Lord will, when he prompts me, they don't get away with stuff for long. I will find out.
Your mom radar goes off,
And
doesn't
I told my friends, I'm not one of those moms. If you see them or you catch them,
Yes.
I want to know.
Yes.
If I want to know, because I pray that they'll be found out quickly.
Yeah.
And they are.
That's smart. Well,
We're in
and,
this together, right?
Yes. It takes a village.
well, and it goes back to, teaching your kids the right value system.
Right.
I mean, that's what I remember when I first went out to college. My dad was like, all right, you're off on your own here. You're going to sell on your own. You need to make sure that you learn the right way, and I'm not going to be the helicopter parent. But on the same token, my worry, even for me with cell phones, is it just subliminally manipulates what your ultimate decisions are. And if you're not an independent thinker, they're going to constantly be influencing you further and further to the left. And that's why I've very clear on my stump that I think that all the institutions are stacked against Republicans. The research institutions, the media, and also big tech. And I spoke to the teenage Republicans last week, and I told them, your generation will be the hardest generation in American history to actually be a conservative.
Right.
And you're going to have to be stronger, more courageous, and you guys as children as well, to make sure we can save this country. So this is kind of my last question. I'll start with you on this, which is, faith. I've noticed, and I was president of Atlanta Young Republican, that I think younger people are far less religious. And becoming more and more secular. My granddad was a Southern Baptist preacher. I grew up a proud Christian. And I believe we got to get back to the value systems that the country was founded on in order to really get it back on track. And a lot of our country's biggest problems are because we're deviating further from Christ.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you made that a core issue of your household.
Right.
How do you live pursuant to that every day? And how would you tell, everyday parents to make sure that you're fighting for that?
So the Bible's like my go-to. I gotta have the word, and I gotta know what the Bible says about a circumstance. I was a high school runaway,
Wow.
and I had a mom that prayed, and
Yeah.
I would feel those prayers. It would convict me, and I know the power of prayer. It changed my life. So when I had kids, I was like, I made it. We are going to pray, not just pray, but I will find out what the word says about a circumstance, and we'll pray the word into a circumstance because I know His word is true. So as a parent, that's what I just suggest. If you're struggling with your kid, if you're struggling in this world, let's go to the word and see what it says. It's always true, and we have a loving Father. And when kids understand how much He loves us, they can run to Him. If they don't understand, they're going to run away from Him. So as parents, we have to reflect that. We have to be reflections of who He is. And so my kids know they know that where I stand, and I'm a prayer warrior for them and for others. But it is our central go-to. There is no other way but through Christ. And He is faithful, and He is so good to us. And His promises are always yes and amen. So we have hope for the future, and we're supposed to be salt and light. So we're supposed to be used for His good in this nation and in this society. And if we're not, we're failing. Not just our generations, but the people around us.
I think that's great. It starts at the top. It starts with leadership at the top as well. And I said that yesterday. We were at a pro-life event, and I said that we need stronger men to make sure that women don't feel like they're going to be alone. I think that's a large part of abortion. Too much people blame the woman. They need to also make sure men are being accountable and be fathers for household. Mindy, how are you making sure that your children live a faith-based life?
Well, for starters, I think we let them know that their identity is found in Christ. That it is not in something superficial in this world, and that you need to be who you are authentically. But if you have Christ in you, He is with you all the time. And so I think, we were talking about this earlier today. I believe that so many of the mental health problems that we have, so many of the issues we have in society, if you peel the onion and you go down to the core, it is we have taken God out of our schools, our communities, our families, and sometimes our churches. Some of our churches have deviated from the gospel. And so these kids are growing up with that void in their life. And so they're trying to fill that hole in their identity with whatever shiny object comes along. And right now it's a gender identity issue. And so kids used to, I'm going to go through my preppy phase, or I'm going to go through my goth phase. Well, now kids are like, well, maybe I'm going to be this gender, or maybe I'm going to be that gender.
The problem is it's irreversible.
Some of it is irreversible. They are doing, medical treatments based on a fleeting feeling. We were all teenagers. We all felt that, like, I don't fit in, and I'm not popular, and your self-esteem is very doubting at that age. And instead of letting these kids work through those issues, we are throwing these little Band-Aid things at them, saying, well, maybe you don't feel that way because you're the wrong identity, you're a wrong gender, But ultimately, if they knew that their identity lied in Christ, they wouldn't have this huge hole they're trying to fill up. And so that's the one thing I'm most proud of with our boys, is that they are so authentic to who they are. They are so just secure in exactly who they are, who God made them to be. And that's what I want them to feel every day.
Awesome.
In our household, when you come home, I've told them all the time, from the time they were little, be weird. Be weird at home.
That's
Be
right.
weird at home.
Yeah.
Because this is your safe space. This
That's
is your
right.
sanctuary. And we have developed that sanctuary for them at home where they could be who they are. And but we do talk about God. We talk about Jesus all the time. You can ask any of my boys, who loves you? And 9 times out of 10, their first answer is going to be God. And well, who else? Well, you do, Mom. But those are things that we've pressed on their hearts from the time that they were born. And they went through a private Christian preschool where other women poured into them with that message. And so from early on, they were hearing those messages. And you have to have that conversation all day, every day, through all circumstances.
No, that's beautiful. Lindsay, what What about you?
Unfortunately, I was not raised with a lot of religion in our house. We've always believed in God, but I really just went to church for vacation Bible school and, Wednesday nights, youth group, things like that. And because of that, I didn't really implement it as early as I would have liked with my own children. It was kind of once things started to get really bad with just school and mental health and my son coming home and having issues because of bullies and as a parent I just felt like I was at my wit's end, and so I was reading a book. It's called The Emotionally Healthy Woman, and it was very religious, and it was just like this huge aha moment to me that I can't change, but I wish I would have implemented a lot earlier in my kids' lives. So we're currently now, we try to have Bibles, leaving them on nightstands so that we remember to read them, and having more open dialogue about just Christ. And my uncle is a Southern Baptist deacon, so
Okay.
he has had a couple of sit downs with us and tried to steer us and help us, find the right church. We've gone to quite a few different churches recently, but I think that it would have made a huge difference in their lives, and hopefully it's not too late. But that's kind of my story on it.
That's great.
Thought
Well,
I was
good.
last on that
Well, last question, then we'll close it out. And
Yeah.
what advice would you give? Bailey and I will be starting a family soon, so you guys are seasoned mothers. But giving advice to us and the challenges, and in order to be the best parents we can, I'll start with you, Mindy, and we'll go around. What advice would you give us?
I think ultimately, number one, do not forget you and Bailey. Do not forget that your marriage is the foundation on which your entire family is built on, and you cannot let your children take priority over that. There are seasons of life, certainly, you're going to have to take care of these infants and then toddlers, and then all the phases have so many challenges or whatever, but it's amazing. But don't ever forget that you and Bailey are the foundation, the cornerstone on what your family is going to be built on. So if you maintain time for you, you focus on your relationship, and you have a healthy marriage, you are doing your kids so much good by modeling that for them.
Yeah.
The messaging that they get at home is so important, and we see that society will tell them all kinds of things. You have to be stronger than that at home and set that foundation for them, so that, as Jackie said, train up
Yeah.
a child in which they should go, and when they are
Yeah.
older they will not depart from it. Set their foundation through this foundation that you and Bailey are creating right now.
I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely, second that. Next to that, I say, just be as involved as possible. Lead by example again, and you've got to be involved with their education, with their sports, and have open conversations. Let them know that they can trust you. I would definitely steer away from, a lot of kids feel like they can't talk to their parents about things, and I think that's a big problem. So trust and open conversations and just being there.
Good. I like it. I'm sure Bailey's watching right now on the couch. So, all right, Jackie.
I would say just enjoy every moment. It
Yes.
goes so fast. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking when they were little babies, I had a bunch of little babies, oh, I can't wait till they're a little older, it'll be easier. And it just goes so fast. Enjoy that moment. And secondly, I have this motto: when life gets crazy,
Yeah.
that we stay in our 15 minutes, because then we can
Yeah.
make time for each other, and we're right here in the 15 minutes. Because when you start to think about everything else, things get
I
lost.
like that.
So we stay in our 15 minutes, and when that 15 minutes is done, we go on to the next, but just enjoy it. It goes so fast, and it's such a blessing.
Dinner at the dinner table
Yes,
every night as
yes.
families. That is something that my parents did with us, and that was very important.
No cell
Our big
phones.
thing too
No cell
is
phones. No. Sometimes we would watch Friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes we
Yeah.
watch it at dinner.
Friends
but-
is great.
Yeah.
Our
Wow.
thing too is protect your home bubble. That's what I call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Protect who comes in to your home bubble, because the wrong influences can do a lot of damage. And so I don't feel like we have to. My kids have to be the most popular kids, and because that home bubble is what's important for them.
Yeah. No,
I
I
have to
agree.
protect them.
I think homes really do have energy to them.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure to protectify that sanctified fort, which is a home. I agree. Well,
And
good.
have fun. I mean, my husband is a funny guy, and the house is always fun, and so
Yeah.
they enjoy coming home, and their friends
They
enjoy
do.
coming, so
Yeah.
it's gotta
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
That means your house has a good energy then.
It does, yeah.
I always remember as a kid, there was that one
yeah.
parent's household I always
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah,
go to
yeah.
because it just had a positive energy.
Yes.
And then there's other homes that didn't have positive
Right.
energies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, good. Well, I appreciate you
Thank
guys
you.
and your courage and your
Thank you.
boldness. And I think this was a great discussion. I think we could have probably talked all night, and I really
I could have.
enjoyed it. I love it. But I appreciate all of our viewers. This is our second kitchen table series. As you guys know, I'm running for Congress. I want to be the most accessible member of Congress to ensure that we're addressing the concerns of everyday folks in the 6th District. This is one of the ones this week, which is getting CRT out of our schools, returning the power of education to parents, and listening firsthand. I think this is beautiful and very valuable. Next week, we will have our election integrity town hall, which is focused on ensuring the great heist does not happen again and being proactive about avoiding and eradicating election fraud in our upcoming 2022 election. So thank you guys very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.